What is going on, guys? Good morning. We're going to be talking about the ABR assault rifle that came in with season 5. I know this is a little late. My apologies. I don't spend money on the battle pass. I don't do like the 20 tier skips or the black sale battle pass. But now that I have it fully leveled up and here's the gameplay behind me, I can really talk about the effectiveness of the ABR1. So we're still going to go through the same categories of the stats for the weapons, right? We're going to be talking about firepower, accuracy, mobility, handling, and just overall movement in the TTK for this gun. So let's start with the bullet velocity for this gun. Bullet velocity is running at 700 meters a second, which unfortunately is running at 4th place out of all the other assault rifles, which honestly, in my opinion, guys, it's not a really good thing. The fact that the ABR1 is a burst rifle, I would want the best hit scan possible because I only have a chance of landing 3 shots. If I'm shooting in burst in succession with the shots not always landing in the same spot because it's a burst rifle, I would want it to have a higher bullet velocity. Remember, guys, higher the bullet velocity, the longer the hit scan range becomes for this weapon. You figured with the 4th place in bullet velocity that the effective damage range for the ABR would at least be a little bit better, but unfortunately it does fall in 3rd place with all the other ARs. But there is still one good thing about the weapon, and unfortunately this is the one out of the 2 only good things that the ABR1 is about, is that it does have the fastest TTK. But let me remind you guys, remember, this is only a fast TTK dependent on you hit all your shots. Now I know that's kind of common sense, like, yeah, of course, Noble, any weapon is going to hit their TTK if you land all your shots. The only reason that ABR is different is because it is a burst rifle. The fact that it has a lower bullet velocity and that shortens the hit scan range, and the fact that you have to guide your burst shot, that's still going to be a very hard thing to do, to land all 5 shots to get that low TTK. But nonetheless, it's still a good time to kill regardless, because the GPR91 is holding its record at 592. If you have the ABR and you can land all your burst shots, you're dropping it down to 544 milliseconds. So moving on to accuracy, guys, and I think this is a very good example of how, even though on paper it's gonna show that the accuracy is very bad for a certain weapon, when you actually use it, when you bring it onto the field, you have your controller settings right, you have the attachments right, the recoil doesn't feel that bad for this weapon. Because let's look at the accuracy, right? Gun kick recoil, this is going to be last place. This has the highest gun kick recoil out of all the guns, which makes sense because it's a burst rifle. You are going to have that gun kick. Then you have the horizontal recoil being 4th to last place in highest recoil, being at 13.41 degrees. And then you also have vertical recoil, which is going to be in 6th place, which is at 42.5 degrees. Now all of this does make sense because it is a burst rifle. That's the nature of it. The idea of these burst assault rifles is that you are able to dish out high damage in high sequences, but at the cost of being able to control the recoil. But using it both in Warzone and multiplayer, I honestly haven't felt that recoil at all. You can actually run it without a compensator, without recoil springs. I'd say at most do a underbarrel to control that horizontal recoil, but other than that, the recoil is fairly fine and it's barely noticeable on this gun. Maybe when you're trying to hit targets that are 60 or 70 meters out, say if you want to use this in the big BR for Warzone, right? But the thing is, if you put on a 2x or a 3x or a 4x, whatever it is, that additional 20, 30, 40% in gun kick recoil control is gonna counter that recoil that you're going to see when you're trying to hit targets that far. Now that I think about it, you actually can do more than just adding the 2x or 3x to control that recoil gun kick visual, right? You can still put on compensator, you can still put on recoil springs. That's why it's really weird that even though on paper it shows that the recoil is very bad, the visual and what you actually see when you're using the weapon is very different. And then we are going to skip mobility because I feel like the mobility metrics for assault rifles, LMGs, sniper rifles, they're all kind of similar. And the thing is, to gauge a gun that is not meant for mobility, that's the reason why I'm going to skip on this. If I'm talking about an SMG, maybe that's probably a better example to use these stats and determine if it's a good weapon or not. And then the last category that we're going to be moving to is handling. Now this is a very interesting one. It's kind of like yin and yang, because with handling I talk about ADS speed, I talk about sprint to fire speed, right? Your aim down sight time is actually 2nd to the last in regards to the entire assault rifle list. That means this has 2nd to the last worst ADS speed, being at 245 milliseconds. But when you look at the sprint to fire speeds, it's holding at 170 milliseconds, and that's going to be at 2nd place for your assault rifle. So in regards to building this weapon, you can either double up on the sprint to fire right? Instead of using a ergonomic riser, you want to use a CQB riser to double up and make it extremely fast to be able to go from hip to shoulder aiming. Or you can counter the slower ADS speed and use an ADS attachments to bring more balance to the weapon. And a quick tip I want to add in regards to this is that whatever weapon that comes out, right, whatever weapon that you want to try, even if it's the best weapon or the worst weapon, you want to research the weapon enough to find its strengths and weaknesses that that weapon holds, because each time when you look at each weapon, there is going to be a certain metric that that weapon will dominate in, and then they'll have a stat for the weapon that they won't dominate in, and that's its weakness. You could either keep using the same attachments that is going to match your playstyle, or you can use attachments to counter the weakness of that weapon, or you can use attachments to buff even the strengths of that weapon. So example with the ABR1, right, you could either counter the ADS and do ADS attachments to have faster ADS speed for the weapon, or the fact that you know that it has the second fastest sprint of fire, that hey, maybe when I use this in close range, I can double up on my sprint of fire stat, that way I can have a first drop on the enemy. I think these are some of the basic things that you need to look at for a weapon when you're building a loadout. But if anything guys, that is my review of the ABR1 assault rifle. I am liking the TTK. I still personally prefer the GPR91. Reason being is because my connection in as a Hawaii player, it's not gonna help me in my case because I'm not always gonna land all my burst shots with the ABR1. So if you are a high ping player, it is going to be a 50-50 gamble on whether you can actually get that fast TTK based on your hit reg. If you are living close to the server and you do have great ping, you know, control your recoil, control your shots, the ABR1 does have the fastest TTK, and I think that's going to help you in a lot of your fights. But if anything, that is all that I have for this video. If you did like this video, please drop a like on it. It helps it tremendously in the algorithm. And if you do enjoy the content overall, guys, please drop a sub to the channel. We'd love to see you here to nerd out with me in Call of Duty, okay? As always, stay pure, stay noble, and hashtag bring back honest gaming. Later, guys.
They're right where we want them. Finish the job. Mission goals are green. Crashing teams are on the